Hi, this is Bernie Borges, host of the Social Business Engine podcast. Welcome back to this up-close series sponsored by SAP. In this series, we examine the role of social selling at SAP. On episode 1, we covered social selling impact, why managers at SAP encourage social selling. On episode 2, we looked at social selling best practices at SAP. On episode 3, we covered the all-important topic of alignment between sales and marketing for social selling success. The theme of this episode, episode 4, is social selling training and enablement. And you'll hear from Marco Sai, Marco Argaez, Charrelle Robinson-Brown, and Phil Lurie. So let's get started. Sales professionals need training and enablement to evolve from basic understanding of the why be a social seller to achieve behavior change where the how of social selling is natural behavior every day, not just once in a while. I'd like each of you to describe your approach to social selling training and enablement at SAP to achieve behavior change. So let's start with, how do you convince people on the importance of social selling? And Charrelle, I'd like to start with you.
Hello, my name is Charrelle Robinson-Brown. I'm the head of global e-learning and gamification for social selling at SAP. My approach on convincing people on the importance of social selling is to really persuade people to use social selling. I really first find out about as much information as I can about the person or the group of people that I'll be talking to or training. I take that social listening approach that we talk so much about here at SAP. What are they reading? What are they following? What are their needs? And then based on those needs or their personal career interests, I customize my approach with them. So I make social selling relevant to their specific situation, because if you make social selling a generic situation or a solution, you'll lose a ton of people.
Terrific. Marco Argaez.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marco Argaez. I'm lead of digital transformation for partners at SAP. And I also use a similar approach as Charrelle does, but always I try to make conscient in the people that is for first time being introduced to social selling about how the market have changed, how customers have changed as well in the way in how they are buying new products and services. And always I love to introduce them to some examples, making themselves the customer and asking them how they used to buy products and services in the past. And using that example, but doing the same in today's environment. So it's very simple for them to realize how they bought products and services before. For example, going to retail stores to try to buy a new television or a mobile phone or whatever they were needing in the past. And comparing that behavior, but doing it today. For example, going to internet, making research, having a look into blogs or probably social media, to understand what other people is saying about the product they want to buy. And actually, they're buying those products not in retail today, but actually they're going to Amazon or to some other online services to buy what they want to buy. So making examples and putting themselves as customers to understand how everything is changing is one of the best ways that I have found to make sure that they understand the importance of social selling in today's businesses.
Terrific. Marco Sai, how do you convince people on the importance of social selling?
Hi, everyone. My name is Marco, and I'm currently the global head of SAP Social Selling Program Training and Enablement. So what we use the approach at SAP is, first one, we really want to emphasize that it's really important that when you convince people on the importance of social selling, you probably want to go high. That means that you at the very beginning, we want to get the management fully on board with social selling, so we get an endorsement. So there is some energy from the top down, so that sometimes really help in terms of different culture and different region. But we find that's really helpful. The second one, that's just as Charrelle mentioned, we really understand who we are going to train, because even they are all salesperson, but the probably for example, if they look after a strategic account, they will have very different needs from social selling from the salesperson who generates volume business, for example, general business or what we call internal commercial sales that looking for a white space and new customers. So you need to really understand their needs and their concerns and their expectation from social selling so you can stay relevant to them. And the third approach that we want to use is that definitely you have to use facts, just as Marco mentioned, that you use some of the third-party studies showing that how the environment has been changed by the digital technology and social media. So the way that you win customer probably have some really serious challenge in current days. So they have to keep in pace with what have been changed in the environment. And also we use data. Just give you an example. There was once our trainer delivered a training in Indonesia, and people were like, "Oh, I'm really skeptical about this. If this is working, I don't think there are our customers on social media, using social media, etc." So we on site we did a quick study that we show them. Actually, there are more than 100,000 decision makers on LinkedIn. That's most of the customers, the sales reps in our Indonesia company, they never know exist. So they started. They got so excited about that. It's like a new golden mile for them to explore. So definitely use fact and data.
If you would describe your approach to social selling training and enablement at SAP to achieve that behavior change.
I'm Phil Lurie, Vice President of Sales Technology at SAP. The first step that we have in training a new social seller is obviously to give them an understanding of what the idea of social selling is and what the goals are. Once they've established what that is, the next step and the most important step, I believe, is making sure that they have a good social profile, that they present themselves as a professional. We provide tools and training to enable someone to put together a professional profile on LinkedIn, to have similar kinds of things on the other tools like Facebook and Twitter and WeChat and the others that we're looking at, even Snapchat, as we go along. We try to provide guidance about which tools you should be in and provide a roadmap of how do you enter into the world of social selling in a step-by-step fashion, because our people have real jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, and this is something that they're doing as they're adding on. So we try to keep it in a sane progression. So the first step in that process is building your personal brand. And that generally starts with having a good LinkedIn profile, because that's used most commonly. After you've got a good brand, we provide you with social advocacy tools so that you can build your brand by publishing relevant articles from both inside and outside of SAP. Then we really focus on another aspect of it, which is using the search engines that are available so that you can find new customers and to build your personal network as well as your professional network, so that you can help find the right contacts within your target companies. One of the elements that we use in our training for managers is to coach their teams to use social media as one of its many tools, because the sales cycle it is more than just making the initial contact and emailing someone and making them a connection. You still have to meet with them, listen to their needs, understand what their problems are, and work with them on that. And as an advisor, and then also as a person who's selling tools, they need to be aware of what's going on in the customer's mind and what their problems are. So the basic social skills, and I mean that in the traditional sense, are still quite important. And you need to be able to get in front of the customer. So one of the things we guide our managers on is making sure that there's a balance, that social selling is a key element, but it's not replacing the entire sales cycle.
Marco Argaez, I'm going to come back to you. Besides training, how do you maintain social selling momentum among the trainees that you work with?
Definitely showing them the benefits and showing them how easy could it be to implement. I mean, always put everything as part of the day-to-day, showing new tools, new tips, new processes that are going to make easier and better the way to social selling. That is something that really helps, because at the end, social selling is a new way to go to market. It's a new way to do what they need to do. It's just a tool. it's not something that should request too much time from the people that needs to do something as it should be selling. So certainly showing them best practices, showing them the best way to interact with customers by leveraging social media and how other people is doing the same in a more proficient way is something that really helps to encourage them to keep momentum and still using social selling techniques as we explained. Of course, there are other means, as it could be some promotions, contests, and things that can encourage the people to go further into the way they are using social selling. But definitely what I believe that works today and will long for much more time is when you really realize the benefit and when you interiorize what you are doing in your day-to-day. And that is precisely the best way that I found in our partners to keep momentum, executing social selling in the best way we showed them.
Thank you, Marco. Charrelle, what are you experiencing besides training? How are you maintaining social selling momentum among the trainees at SAP that you work with?
I actually got really excited when I saw this question because I'm in charge of gamification. That's one area I'm personally responsible for. I think the way that we encourage social selling behaviors and drive that momentum is through incentives. Gamification is what we refer to it as. We run several contests each year to drive social selling momentum. In addition to that, there are several ways that we recognize social selling champions, like sharing success stories, being featured in some of our global communications, and also our global all hands meetings. But those are the ways that we drive social selling momentum. We reward our champions for actually engaging in the methodology.
Excellent. Marco, Sai, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I think Marco, Argaez, and Charrelle, actually, she's one of my teammates, has made some really good points. I just want to add that to keep the momentum, that at SP, we really try really hard to create a feeling of belonging and excitement. We make social selling something that everybody really feels excited to be a part of. For example, if someone is really good and keep practicing social selling and to see success and help SAP to grow business from social selling, then we make sure that he will get recognition from his team, from his country executive membership. So that really, really excites them. And in the meantime, we also create something like a linking badge or some recognition, material they can use to build their personal reputation. So that keep that a big excitement for them. And in the meantime, we for some of the good top social sellers, we invite them to share to their peers some of the calls, just as, for example, Charrelle mentioned our all hands call. But in the meantime, we have the call specifically for the trainers, for our more like social seller on the daily work basis. So they get some personal, internal, and external exposure. So I think we find that these approaches are really helpful to keep the momentum going on.
Terrific. All great examples. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the learning curve from the beginner, the social selling beginner to proficiency. So Marco, Sai, why don't we stay with you and you kick off that question?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a very good question. I think to answer that question, it's a little bit complicated because it really depends on what role. Again, I want to emphasize that what role this salesperson is. If he is, for example, at SAP, we have some sales team that's naturally very digital savvy. That, for example, we have a team that's naturally using digital channels or calls to find customers. But in the meantime, we have also the team that's more conventional, like using old school techniques to win customers. So it really depends on what role you are going to train. But in general, we found that. At SAP, our standard curriculum is that one day we take one day physical training to fully enable the salesperson, regardless which role they are. In general speaking, that we found for them to fully master social selling skills, technology, and the tools, it takes probably half year. But in some special cases, for example, what we pilot in Shanghai, that some salesperson generates new pipeline, find new business opportunities in just 1 week after training. So it really depends. But in general, to your question, in general, we find that it takes 3 months to half year for people to fully master social selling.
Charrelle, how about yourself? The approximate learning curve that you're seeing from beginner to proficiency in social selling at SAP?
I am seeing, I think Marco's assessment was correct. However, I think there are different ways that people learn and adopt social selling, and it's directly tied to how they choose to engage or how much they choose to engage with the methodology. I feel like the learning curve is deeper, meaning their commitment is more intense when they choose to get trained. Self-initiated participants tend to adopt social selling and engage with it quicker. So, let's just say it's something on someone's key performance indicators, or their boss tells them, I'd like you to get trained in this area. I think the adoption and the learning curve is a little more shallow when it's not self-initiated. But when people choose to get trained in social selling, they know the benefits of the methodology and they're engaging on their own, I think that the learning curve is deeper and more intense. So I think that timetable is quicker. So if they choose to get trained, whether they want to be a trainer or an end user, or they're looking at our e-learnings, when they adopt it, the learning curve is a little bit deeper than when they're asked to get trained in social selling.
Charrelle, can you elaborate on your response and address the why of self-learning is more effective than formal training?
So what I meant by when folks are self-initiating being trained in social selling, I think that those folks are the ones that already know, here are some benefits. This is how this can help improve my business. I see the direct correlation between social selling and what I do. This has personally been beneficial to me. I've already seen the results. And so I'm going to practice this. I'm going to conduct social listening. I'm going to find out what my customers and partners and the audience that I'm surrounding myself with within my focus area, what their needs are. So to better be able to address their needs, to be able to share from a social channel perspective, to better be able to brand myself, I'm going to engage in social selling, and I'm going to conduct research about social selling. I'm going to engage in the e-learning trainings. I'm going to get trained as a trainer so that I know everything about social selling, and this will help me run my business better. So that's what I mean by when people are self-initiating the training. They understand the benefits of social selling more.
Marco Argaez, I'd like to hear from you. Can you describe the approximate learning curve that you're experiencing from beginner to proficiency in social selling at SAP in your region?
Sure, absolutely. Well, taking in account that my role is global and that I work with third parties, I mean, I'm not training and working with SAP employees necessarily to train them or teach them how to use social selling, but instead, what I do is to work with our resellers, other companies, and my work is actually encourage and convince them to embrace our best practices regarding social selling. What I can tell you here is that because the taxonomy of the partners' labor force is very wide, probably I can answer this based on the edge, because I have found that people, for example, millennials, has a different process to learn and a different curve compared to X-Gens. When I have to face millennials, I can tell you that I have noticed that they do have a faster uptake in terms of what we're teaching them and how to use techniques, tools, and processes around social selling. However, I see lower consolidation because they become a little bit more demotivated if they don't see faster results when they are applying what we're teaching them to do. So we have to do very specific work with them to make sure that they can go over that. And when we're talking about X-Gens, I see the opposite. What I see is a slower uptake because they are more reticent to use social selling at the beginning because they need more explanations and they are not used to use social media and so on. However, once you convince them, they are ready. They are faster, getting better results compared to millennials. So I wanted to touch this point based on the edge, because I think that it's interesting to add that discussion as well, because not all the people learn in the same way, and not all the people have the same expectation about what they can get out of social selling when they are going to get training and new techniques on their shelf.
Okay, you make an interesting point there on sort of the demographics. So I'd like to ask each of you to make any remark on any topic related to social selling training and enablement that perhaps is in your head that hasn't been covered so far.
I think we talked a lot about adopting social selling, but sometimes as a trainer and training, over 200 people a year, whether it's end user training or training trainers, I feel like people have sometimes a resistance to social selling. I think it's very important to communicate that even though it's called social selling, it is not only for quota carriers or salespeople. It is for people in the service industry. It is for people in the business services industry. So I think a majority of people may resist the idea of social selling because they either feel like it's a hard methodology to adopt, or because they don't think that it is relevant to their business. The Global Social Selling Program team at SAP has a solution for both of those audiences. The program is easy to understand and adopt. We have proven results, and we offer an extremely high level of training and support. We do one-on-one training. We do small and large group end user training. We have intimate settings where we teach trainers to teach end users, and the Social Selling Program Manager Training Program. We have e-learnings, and we also have virtual training.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Charrelle. Either Marco, anything you'd like to add on anything related to social selling training and enablement?
Yeah, I can go. So this is Marco Tai again. So something we learned is that because SAP is really now one of the top social selling company in the world, and something we learned that could probably benefit a risk company want to replicate our success is that you probably want to start small before you go big. That's you can understand this in three different layers. The first one is that when you look at if you're a global company and you have so many countries to cover, make sure you use data analytics to choose which is the country you want to go first, because that will help you to focus your resources. For example, we always focus on the more mature markets, but in the meantime, more mature markets don't mean that they are more potential for social selling for whatever reason. For example, Germany has some serious competition. So you probably want to prioritize which country you want to go first. And also, I already mentioned this, that even you are going to train the salesperson, but if they are from different sales line, for example, if they are volume sales or if they are top account sales, they will have very different needs and expectations from social selling. So you always choose. You want to prioritize your resources to focus on the team that's already hanging fronts that digital savvy that probably can generate results in a quicker turnaround. So you can use this successful stories to help promote social selling to convince more people. And then the last one is a third layer is on the personal level. Even in the same sales team, there will be some more front runner, and there are more some late adopter. So you want to pilot with the people that's more willing to take the challenge and help and working with you to generate results from social selling. So this is something I learned from the past years. I think probably would be quite valuable.
Excellent. Thank you, Marco. Marco Argaez, anything you'd like to add?
Sure. Something quick. We know when we have discussed the market, customers, and the sales cycle have changed. And as it has been said, Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? So in general, whenever as individuals, we are facing the need to adapt to something new, for example, these market trends, new technologies, or even change our behavior to remain competitive in new business environments, it's really common to cross a period of assimilation, a period of understanding, where we first start to observe loss of effectiveness in what we were doing before. And even if that we did was very successful in the past, we understand that we need to change, and we realize the need to have a different behavior to make sure that in the new context, we are going to be relevant and that we can achieve what we need. Training different is helping us to achieve these goals in SAP. Social selling is really helping to break over the way how we are doing business as well. And the people more and more is engaging what we are delivering, as Charrelle and Marco have mentioned. Part of our programs, they are training themselves by using the internet, but also they are attending to all the sessions and all the content that we are sharing to them to make sure that they are going to be relevant and that they are going to be a part of this new digital pace that we are facing all in this new era.
This has been episode 4 of the Social Business Engine Up Close series, Savvy Social Selling the SAP Way. Best practices that win customers. Be sure to download Social Business Journal Volume 11, the companion piece that weaves together the narrative of social selling success factors at SAP. It's available for download ungated at vengreso.com/SAP. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso, and your host. Join me on episode 5, the final episode of this Up Close series, where we'll look at social selling ROI at SAP.